Hi, my name is Brooke Weber, and today we're looking at a multinational financial management case based on McDonald's. One important thing to note before we begin is that McDonald's doesn't use traditional geographic means to distinguish their markets and instead use market characteristics. Their first market is the United States market, encompassing all locations within the U.S. Next is their international lead market, which are established markets such as Australia or Canada. Next is the high growth market, which have the potential for high growth for company-owned or franchise locations, such as in China or Italy. And lastly, you have foundational markets, which have the potential to have franchised markets, but do not include any of the countries listed previously. When looking at it by the numbers, over the last 5 years, proportionately the number of stores within the U.S. has actually decreased to around 52%, while the number of stores internationally has increased to proportionally 48% of their total store numbers. If you look at it further by different markets, the number that in the U.S. has decreased by about 1.6% over the last 4 years, where their international lead markets have increased by 4.8%, and their number in their high growth market has increased by nearly 27%. One reason why we see this decrease in the United States is that customers are now willing to pay more money for different food options. McDonald's Healthy Food campaign actually cost them sales, and the stores that were underperforming will ultimately closed. However, in the international lead market, we see the increase because of increased sales in countries such as Canada, Australia, and the UK, and also the opening of 100 new stores in Germany. Lastly, for their high growth markets, we see the increase there due to a partnership that allows them to open 2,000 new locations in China, as well as 50 new stores in Russia in the year of 2017. Next, we're looking at sales, operating income, and capital expenditures. We can see that for sales, about 42% of their sales come from stores located within the United States, and the remaining 58% come from stores outside of the United States. On operating income, we see again 42% is coming from locations within the United States and 58% from those outside of it. Lastly, for capital expenditures, 52% are used within the United States and 48% are used on stores outside of the United States. To break this down further by individual markets, we can see that when you're looking at sales, the high growth market had over 12% growth in sales, followed closely by the foundational markets that had around 10% growth in sales. For operating income, foundational markets had a giant 306% growth, which was far greater than any other market. Lastly, for capital expenditures, foundational markets again had the highest growth at around 6%. Next, we'll look at the currency exposure. For their exposure on net assets, you can see there's about 5 different currencies they are exposed to, their largest being the British pound, where they're exposed by about 1.9 billion US dollars. Additionally, in the Australian dollar, they're exposed by about 1.5 billion US dollars. Next, there are debt obligations in foreign currency. They have 4 different currencies they are exposed to. However, the largest is by far the euro, where they have over 9.7 billion US dollars in exposure. This is also the most pressing debt obligation they need to pay because the first maturity starts in 2018, where the other debts fall much later. Because the euro is their most pressing issue, I chose to look at the difference between the US dollar and the euro between January 1st, 2017 and December 31st, 2017, and found that overall the US dollar was appreciating throughout that time frame. Next, we're looking at their average annual sales. For McDonald's, they break this down between their company-operated and their franchise locations. For their company-operated, you can see that between 2016 and 2017, all the markets had a decrease in their sales, with the largest being in their foundational markets, which decreased by over 58%. However, their franchise sales actually increased for all the markets between the 2016 and 2017 year, with their largest being in their high growth markets of over 41%. Lastly, we're looking at the Big Mac Index, which is looking to find the correct level of prices based on the purchasing power parity. However, through empirical research, they have found that this does not always hold true in the short term, and they're uncertain about its ability to hold true in the long term. Nevertheless, I pulled the data from the Big Mac Index for January 2018 for countries that represented all 4 of McDonald's markets. From this table, you can see that all the currencies are undervalued based on the price of a Big Mac, except for Switzerland, highlighted in green, which is actually overvalued. This held true in 2017, with Switzerland being the only country overvalued, and again in 2016, with Switzerland being the only country overvalued. Because of this, I chose to look at the difference in conversion rates between the US dollar and currencies that again represented all 3 of McDonald's international markets, and found that for the 5-year period between January of 2013 and December of 2017, all of the currencies appreciated against the US dollar. However, for the 2017, the US dollar started to appreciate against all these foreign currencies. Thank you.